Today we're going to be seeing if the no state income tax has any effect on the NHL and is it ruining the NHL. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, and let's get into this. So if you guys like this podcast kind of style of episode, let me know. And I mean, this has been one of the biggest topics in the NHL media community. Eck has made a video. I think Frank Cervalli made a video on it. Rob Talks Hockey made a video on it, right? So there's a lot of people talking about this situation. It's been like this for the last year, 2 years, kind of. This has been a blow up, kind of conversation. And we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give my opinion. And I mean, you guys might disagree. It's my opinion. I want to hear your opinion in the comments. That's what the comment section's for. Okay, so if you guys don't know what it is, I'm not the best with finances, so I'm going off the top of the dome here, but no state income tax in terms of NHL salaries is basically when you play in a city with no state income tax. Let's say you play in Toronto, right? You make $100,000 per game, and you take home 50,000 of it or whatever it is, right? But then if you play in a game with no state income tax, that's less taxes. Obviously, that's how it works. And I'm pretty sure you come home with like 60 or 70,000. There's still taxes in these states. I don't think there's a single state with literally no tax. I could be wrong, but that'd be kind of stupid. But anyways, we don't have to get political and stuff, you know what I'm saying? But let's just see, is it legit? Like, is the state income tax that much of an issue, or are these fans just salty, or is it like a real thing the NHL should look at and take care of? Now, I'm not gonna lie, I tried to record this 3 times already, and each time my audio just corrupted. So this video may not get seen, but I'm pretty sure it's good now. I'm constantly checking. Anyways, so where I want to start is talking about each team individually. Now, there's 5 current teams in the NHL, about to be 6 when Gary Bettman adds Houston. But there's 5 current teams that reside in a state with no state income tax. And those teams are Tampa Bay, Florida, Vegas, Dallas, and the Nashville Predators. We are only going to be talking about the first 4 today because they are a part of what we know the cheater teams. Nashville, unfortunately, isn't part of that, elite squad. But maybe they can make it one day, but for right now, we're going to be talking about the 4 cheater teams, and are they cheating because of the tax, or are they known as cheater teams because of other stuff? Let's start off with the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they were the first team that kind of introduced this conversation by winning back-to-back, making 3 straight Cup finals from 2020 to 2022. Now, if we look at this Tampa Bay Lightning rebuild and their roster, they started off with Steve Yzerman, one of the greatest minds for a rebuild. Look where Detroit was when he took over, and look where he's taken them now. Obviously, they haven't got to the playoffs, but that's not it is his fault, but it's not his fault. Tampa Bay, they built around him, then they got Julien Brisebois, took them to the next level. They have one of the few teams who stuck with their coach instead of, trying to join this coaching carousel and just blaming the coach for all their problems and firing each coach they have. And they stuck with John Cooper, and it paid off in the long run. John Cooper, obviously, one of, if not the best coach in the NHL. And when we look at this Lightning team, they got the number 1 pick in 2008 and drafted not a generational talent, but I mean a guy who scored 60 goals, a guy who was the captain of 2 Stanley Cup winning teams, a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, Steven Stamkos. And I mean, when you get a number 1 pick, when you get that kind of a player at number 1, you're bound to, with the right GM and the right coaching and the right decisions, you're bound to build a good team around him. And then the next year, they drafted at number 2 and chose a superstar defenseman in Victor Hedman. And I think this is a misconception that fans have. The Tampa Bay Lightning got the number 1 and number 2 picks, right? It's literally what Chicago has been doing. Chicago got Connor Bedard, a goal-scoring superstar prospect, and then they also got Artem Levshinov, a big two-way defenseman. It's basically what Chicago has done. And then throughout the draft, they found these late round steals by drafting, not what, the NHL was going for, but they drafted in their own lane. They picked Nikita Kucherov, who's falling because, the Russian tax and all that stuff. They picked Braden Point, who wasn't known as a good skater, in the 3rd round. They picked Tyler Johnson, an undersized player. They picked Andre Palat, like a foreign random player. They signed Yanni Gourde out of free agency, undrafted. They got Ryan Callahan. They traded Jonathan Drouin, who is looked at as one of these top players, one of the top prospects in the NHL. They traded him for Mikhail Sergachev. They got Ryan McDonough as well. And, they obviously drafted Vasilevsky 19th overall, got their goalie of the future. And that is a masterclass of rebuilding. However you want to slice it, that is a absolute masterclass of rebuilding. Alex Killorn as well. They didn't even sign a major free agent. They just got it done through drafting and late round steals. So, did the Tampa Bay Lightning rebuild happen because of the taxes? I'm going to say no. I think you knew that answer was coming. But let's check if the other teams did, because their rebuilds might be more because of tax. Okay, next up we have the Florida Panthers, who might win their 2nd Stanley Cup on Tuesday. And, here's how we decipher it. They got Alexander Barkov 2nd overall in 2013, and he has become a top, 5, 10, wherever you want to put him, top whatever player in the NHL. That's what you hope for with the top 3, top 5 pick. Then they drafted a literally exceptional status, generational, looked at as the time, defenseman Aaron Ekblad with the number 1 overall pick in 2014. So just like the Lightning, they got 2 top picks, drafted 2 players who are still on their team and make a big impact. Now I will say Aaron Ekblad, maybe, hasn't lived up to the number 1 status as some of the other players after him or before him, but he still is a really, really good two-way defenseman, and he's definitely worth like a top 5, top 10 pick. But then they picked up, Carter Verhaeghe, Evan Rodriguez, these random players like Eetu Luostarinen, these AI-generated names, like they got Nico Mikkola, Gustav Forsling, and they turn these guys into amazing NHL players. Now, you might say, oh, well, they got them on steals of deals because of the tax. Gustav Forsling, honestly, probably would have got like 6, at the most, 6.5 mil by a desperate team. There is no way Gustav Forsling would have got like this $8 million, $9 million contract that he probably would have got if he entered free agency today. And, they just locked their guys up. They know who fits their system, and they just locked those random players up, and those randoms became good players. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think those players would have became as good if they were on like some random team. And Florida has done a great job with their pro scouting department. Obviously, they got Paul Maurice, Bill Zito. So, maybe one thing you can say through this is that, you can get the best coaches, the best training staff, the best facilities if you have a bigger budget because you have no state tax. But in terms of both of these rebuilds, obviously they got Sam Reinhart for Devin Levi, who was looked at one of the top goalie prospects. They traded Spencer Knight away, who was looked at as one of the top goalie prospects. And their big free agent signing over the years was Bobrovsky, but they overpaid him by so much at the time. Now, obviously, it's worked out, but that could have gone both ways. That could have been the worst contract in the NHL, but it turned out to be one of the best that Florida has ever made. And then they traded, the cherry on top, they traded a 115-point player for Matthew Tkachuk, who, obviously has lived up to that trade. That trade has worked out for them. But that could have backfired so easily. Jonathan Huberdeau could have, maybe he scored 115 points because he played with Barkov, whatever. But Jonathan Huberdeau could have became, like, a superstar player, and Matthew Tkachuk could have flopped in Florida. But again, is this rebuild because of the tax? I'm going to say no again. think they did a great job. Sam Bennett as well, finding these guys who are at their lowest value and turning them into high value players. So Florida, I don't think it's because of the tax. Now, they did get Seth Jones and Brad Marchand, and we'll talk about that later. But for right now, we're 0 for 2 on because of the tax. Next up is the Dallas Stars, and this is the first one where I can see the argument, because you have Robertson, Hintz, Heiskanen, Harley, Johnston, Stankoven, Ottinger, right, Lindell, Ben, all these guys drafted, developed, and I mean, they drafted a good team. Even without the tax, they would have been a great team, a playoff team. But they did get Matt Duchene. Now, they did trade for Mikael Granlund, so I won't count that. But they got Matt Duchene, and then they got Mikko Rantanen as well. Now, I know they traded Stankoven into first, but Mikko Rantanen did sign for less. Was it because of the tax? Was it because Dallas is a winner? Because of good weather? Who knows what the real reason is that Rantanen chose Carolina over, Dallas. But if you're not drafted and developed in Carolina, and you don't have some tie to Carolina, no offense to Carolina, I can't talk because, I'm a Jets fan and we have the worst city in the league. But I will say something that, why would a player not want to live in Dallas over Carolina if they have no connection? And people say, oh, he chose Dallas because of the tax. Well, Rantanen was originally going to choose Colorado. That's the Colorado just didn't want to pay him the amount of money that he wanted, which was less than what he got at Dallas. So I don't think, I will say getting Rantanen, getting Duchene, can be attributed to the taxes. But I don't know. Dallas is 50-50 for me. And then I will say the Vegas Golden Knights 100% because of the tax. No, I'm joking. But Vegas as well. They just showed that they don't care about loyalty. These other teams had, continuity. Vegas, they just first of all, that 2018 Mickey Mouse ass run, but they had William Karlsson turn him into a 40-goal scorer. Shea Theodore turned him into an elite defenseman. Jonathan Marchessault turned him into a Conn Smythe winner. He was on Florida. Riley Smith as well. He was on Florida as well. These guys were on no tax teams as well. They just turned into amazing players. And then obviously they bought low on guys like Eichel, Stone, right? So Vegas, maybe they were able to get Hurdle and Hannafin because of the taxes, wiggle them into the starting, wiggle them into becoming perfect players or star players, whatever. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's hard to pinpoint these teams being good on purely taxes, because then there's other things like the Edmonton Oilers have made 2 cup finals, and they're in Canada, so obviously they have a lot of taxes. And Alberta's, the most against taxes out of all the provinces, but still. And then, you look at the President's Trophy, the Winnipeg Jets have, they are the President's Trophy winners, and they're in Winnipeg. Toronto Maple Leafs, they have some of the best players in the league, and they have super high taxes. And some of them are from America and Sweden and these random ass places. So I don't know. I think it's a mix of both, right? Even Ottawa, they've been able to retain their players. Montreal, Calgary has, they were able to retain not many players, but they have lower taxes than, or they're more against taxes than Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver. As much as you can talk trash about them, while they were good, the reason they imploded as a team is not because of the taxes. Why is this an issue? I want to get to the bottom of this. If it's not necessarily the taxes, now taxes is a big advantage. I will say anyone who says it's not an advantage is lying to themselves. It is an advantage, a big advantage at that. But is it the reason these teams are good? No. I feel like if anyone thought that, they're just kind of coping at this point. But I wanted to know, why is Nashville not in that conversation? Because Nashville, obviously has no state income tax, my bad, for all you Americans out there, but I mean, I'm just confused. Like, why is Nashville not in those conversations? Like, obviously, Nashville signed three big free agents last year, and nobody said it was because of the tax, because those contracts don't look great. But they did it. They signed Steven Stamkos. He's a champion, captain, 60 goals. Jonathan Marchessault's a Conn Smythe winner. Brady Shea is one of the top second pair defensemen in the league, and nobody questioned it. It's interesting. And then also in other sports, I do want to talk about it. There's teams like the Memphis Grizzlies. They have no state income tax. They are a small market. Jacksonville Jaguars. They are in Florida. They have no state income tax. Now, is it the city or is it, the team? I don't really know. The Tennessee Titans as well. That's another one. Right, like the Las Vegas Raiders, they're fairly new, but they ain't getting anybody. So, I don't know I don't think it's taxes. So, if it's not taxes, what is it? Now, let's first discuss what happens if you punish these teams who have taxes. And now Gary Bettman got asked this question a couple days ago, and he was, pointing out the fact that then teams like LA and New York would have an unfair advantage because these are obviously big cities that players want to play in. Wayne Gretzky wanted to play in LA, right? I mean, he didn't want to leave Edmonton in the first place, but that's besides the point, which shows a pattern, but we'll get to that later. Artemi Panarin it's signed to New York. So it's, these teams who are in big markets are going to get players, and a lot of these no state income tax teams are unfortunately in bigger states. Like, they have highly populous states with a lot of rich people who can afford to go to these games. And when, so we'll talk more about that later. I'm kind of setting something up, and I think the real main advantage that these teams have over some other teams, like maybe Buffalo or whatever. But next up, I want to talk about what are some of the issues then with these teams. Why are they so good? And if they're cheater teams, how are they cheating? I think the main issue I see, at least, is the LTIR glitch. And now it's literally it feels like it's straight out of a video game, the way some of these teams abuse the LTIR. And unfortunately, other than Chicago, back, when they won their cups, it's a lot of these teams who have no state income tax, and maybe that's an advantage that they have. They can go deep into their pockets. Some players are willing to sit out, more games than they should because they make more money at the end of the day. I don't know if that's completely accurate, so take my word with a grain of salt. However, I feel like it very well could be a reason that these teams go into the LTIR, and I think if the new CBA is going to do anything, I think it should fix that more than the taxes. I don't think teams should be punished for geographical location, in my personal opinion, because, Gary literally put them there. They're literally Gary Bettman's favorite teams for a reason. It's so obvious. Vegas, Tampa, Florida, these are his favorite teams. Of course he's going to want to give them advantages, but I think the LTIR thing needs to be fixed because teams going this deep into their salary cap pool and stacking teams like Hannafin and Hurdle, and then Marchand and Jones, Rantanen and Granlund, Ceci, because of the LTIR, and then obviously teams such as Winnipeg, I'm just using us as an example, Columbus, teams that can't really use the LTIR as much because, they're smaller markets and all that stuff. I think that's one issue that's got to be fixed. Let me know your opinion on that in the comments. I don't know what the fix is. The fix is pretty simple. Just come back when you're not injured. Don't try and cheat the game. However, we know that Florida, Dallas, places like these these cities, literally everyone cheats on everyone. These players, not to start any rumors, but I'm sure they cheat in card games. They cheat, in other scenarios as well. So why would their teams not cheat to get the best advantage? I think the LTIR thing needs to be fixed. And I think another thing that people, underestimate, that's so obvious, but people are really blinded by hatred, and they really want to hate the Panthers, Lightning, whatever, is that why would they not want to play in Florida? Florida is such a nice place. In the NBA, a lot of people want to play in Miami. A lot of people also want to play in LA, New York. These, people want to play in these big cities, these big markets, these nice weather places, like Anaheim, for example. A lot of people love Anaheim. And, San Jose, right? Tyler Toffoli goes to San Jose, right? Cutter Gauthier goes to Anaheim. These cities get these players because they are nice cities. And unfortunately, it's going to hurt cities like Buffalo, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Calgary, Columbus, right? And it's just the unfortunate reality. But the league works better when there's big markets and small markets. If everything was a big market, it would be no fun, right? It would just be money hungry. But the league is fun when there's big markets, small markets, and it's not like these small markets can't sign anyone. Johnny Gaudreau, rest in peace, signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's from New Jersey, so it's not even like it was a hometown decision. Patty Laine as well. Dubois, he didn't choose to go to Winnipeg, but Winnipeg has done a great job of keeping their players. Dahlin just signed 8 years in Buffalo. So it's possible for these small markets, and people love to root for the small market teams. And I think when we get a new commissioner, there will be a lot more of these small market teams, winning championships like the NBA, having some parity in the league. But right now we just have to suffer with the current commissioner that we have and his obsession of bringing the cup to Florida. And then the last issue that I see specifically with the Florida Panthers is, you can say I'm coping, I'm salty, all you want. I actually like the Florida Panthers, I don't really like some of their players, but I like Barkov, Forsling, Luostarinen, Lindell, Seth Jones, Bobrovsky. I like a lot of their players, but the refs are so obviously in favor of the Florida Panthers. It is actually ridiculous sometimes. Now you can bring up a lot of videotape and stats and advanced stats of how Florida doesn't get every single call in the world. They're not going to get every call, but they always get the one that matters. They always get the one that decides the game. You have to be good to be lucky, but you also have to suck off the refs. So we need to investigate who is giving the refs, that good stuff, because I don't know how they keep doing this, but it's like that meme, they can't keep getting away with this. That is literally the Florida Panthers. But, it's not something that I'm going to, always complain about, even though I always do, because the refs, at the end of the day, they're human. They want to see the best team win. The Florida Panthers would probably have win without the refs as well. But, the refs are just so obviously on their side sometimes. It's actually, pisses me off sometimes. But, maybe I'm just seeing it wrong. But I feel like from just talking to people who are even Florida fans, I feel like it's kind of how it is. But there's nothing we can really do about it until Gary gets out as well. So just gotta leave it in the past. Before we get to the conclusion of this video, one thing I wanted to suggest to you guys. Now, if for any of you who know how the NBA works, there is this thing called the stipend rule. Basically, you can't trade consecutive first-round picks. Obviously preventing teams from shooting themselves in the foot. Now that more teams are just shipping off first overall picks like it's nothing to quote-unquote maximize their core, basically suggesting that they live in a nice market and they will get to sign players whenever they want, like Toronto, Florida, Tampa, And I feel like Dallas, obviously, but putting something like the stipend rule could help a lot with these smaller market teams. Then, I mean, it kind of balances it out. Like the Orlando Magic just traded 4 first-round pick for Desmond Bane. And, I mean, Orlando is a pretty small market in terms of the NBA. So, teams like they can do that stuff when there's a stipend rule. So that's just a suggestion of something that could help out the NHL. I don't know if it will, but let me know your opinion on that. Now, to answer the question, is the Florida Panthers' success, the Tampa Bay Lightning success, is the main reason because of the state income tax? In my opinion, no. Is it a big advantage? Yes. It is one of the most appealing advantages in the NHL. Maybe it's because NHL players don't make as much money as other athletes. I mean, in other sports, it's an advantage. It's not like this much of an advantage. I feel like in the NHL, it's probably the biggest advantage right now, which is very interesting, is hockey players. Not to be, offensive to anyone, but hockey players usually come from families with money, and basketball and football players sometimes don't have the luxuries that hockey players have, as hockey is a more expensive sport and all that. So it's surprising that hockey players are money hungry, but I mean, it's a weird thing. In my personal opinion, the biggest advantage that teams have, and the reason that teams get players, is mainly because of winning. Now, there are some players who do not care about winning at all, like Mikko Rantanen, signing with the Dallas Stars. I'm joking. But there are there are players like Mitch Marner, for example. Mitch Marner, he might not go to Carolina or Winnipeg or winning teams, but I'm sure Mitch Marner would love to go to a team that has, no state, that has state tax, but is a winner. Now, it's kind of hard to find those teams, but, for example, like just throwing out an example, like the Utah Hockey Club, the Arizona obviously had negative aura, but the Utah Hockey Club have been an incredible team. They have a great fan base, a passionate fan base. They're on the up and up. I'm sure Mitch Marner wouldn't mind. He'd probably want a little bit more because he's all about his money. But I'm sure Mitch Marner wouldn't, reject Utah for, less, like $2 million less to play for the Florida Panthers. That's just not happening. And if you think that, it's a little weird in my opinion. But, maybe I'll be wrong. I think the biggest advantage a team can have is having a winning culture, having proven you can win, and then, that helps you retain your players. Does it help you get free agents when you have no state tax? Maybe nowadays, but it didn't when Florida was trash. Didn't when Tampa was picking first overall. It didn't when, Dallas was struggling, and I think that when you have a winning culture mixed with the state tax, that's when it becomes an unfair advantage. But you have to get that winning culture. You have to draft well. You have to make the right trades at the right time. You have to make the right signings. You have to build a system that maximizes your players. And I think the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning are great examples of that. Nowadays they can sign all the free agents they want. But, back in the day when Florida was the worst run organization in the NHL, even worse than the Arizona Coyotes, they weren't getting anybody, bro. There is no way Brad Marchand would have wanted to come to the Florida Panthers back in the day. But nowadays, they've won a Stanley Cup, they made a cup final, they have a lot of good players, they have a great system, they have a great culture, they have great weather, they have a lot of attractive females, and they have no state income tax. So there are a lot of reasons that Florida and Tampa and these places are attractive destinations, but I think the most important one is definitely a winning culture. So that is my opinion on the whole take. Let me know your opinion in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.